webinar, so you're all very, very welcome, and thank you very, very much for joining us. My name is Sharon Bly. I'm Director of Health and Wellness here at the Consumer Goods Forum, so good morning or good afternoon or good evening wherever you find yourself in the world. So let me introduce you to today's speakers from our member companies. So first we have Petra from Nestlé, and Petra is a co-lead of our measurement and reporting working group. And Petra works with Harmjan from Ahold, who also works with us at the Consumer Goods Forum to co-lead the measurement and reporting work stream. Supporting us throughout the year is Deloitte, and the project lead, Blake, from Deloitte, works with our team around the year as we progress on this exercise to really understand how we're doing in terms of the implementation of the health and wellness commitments and resolutions that the Board of Directors of the CGF have taken on behalf of our members. So you'll notice today that all of you are on mute except for our speakers. We hope to get you through our presentation quickly and leave time during today's webinar for questions, because this really is, it's an industry report, it's your report. We're representing all of your companies, and for some of you, hopefully you'll take part in this report next year. So we want to make sure that if you do have questions, if you do have feedback and comments for Petra, Harmjan, Blake and myself, that we can improve the process and that the report gets better year on year. So you have a number of ways to ask questions. Firstly, at the end of the webinar, we'll unmute all of your phone lines, so you'll be able to ask a question directly to the speakers. You'll also see on the right hand of your screen there's a small chat panel, so you can write your questions directly to us throughout the webinar, and we'll be looking at those. Or if you want to send me an email directly to s.bly@theconsumergoodsforum.com, don't hesitate to send me an email. I'll make sure that I get that as we go through today's webinar. So just before I hand you over to our speakers, what we want to bring you through today. So we'll show you the agenda. So to let you know why we measure, why this is really important for the Consumer Goods Forum, why we need to be empowered to tell the great story of all of the efforts and achievements that our members are doing in health and wellness. We want to share with you who reports and our aspirations about where we want to get to in terms of reporting and what we want to do to bring more people on board. This is the third year we're doing this, so we've done this for 2 years with, we've opened it up to the full membership of the Consumer Goods Forum, and our very first year was a pilot with the board member companies. So we have learned and we continue to learn over the 3 years of this process. We wanted to share with you some positive recognition that we've received, whether it's from the media, whether it's from external stakeholders, whether it's from our external scientific advisory council, but what is the value of doing reporting on an annual basis. We want to share with you what's next, and this is where we'd love to have your feedback to really help us to get better. So Petra and Harmjan and the members of the working group are looking at what we have planned for 2016, what we need to re-engineer in terms of the measurement and reporting exercise, how we can get better. We want to make sure that we have meaningful data as we move forward. And as I mentioned, Q&A, and you can see my email here on the screen, s.bly@theconsumergoodsforum.com. So we'll get right into the agenda. So just I'll hand you over to Petra, who'll give us an update on the external context, why we're measuring, and who is reporting. Petra.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharon, for the kind introduction, and I'm extremely pleased really to have the opportunity to share a little bit with you what we have been achieving all together actually as a team. So I feel honored that I have the opportunity to actually represent the entire efforts of the people that have been reporting. And I would like to start us off with taking a little bit of a helicopter view to understand somewhat in terms of where are we actually sitting. I guess you probably know as much and as well as I know that we are in an external environment that is changing extremely well and fast. And what we are seeing is actually that in terms of the society itself, we are actually having a population in front of us that is aging very fast. So we notice that in the past, of course, people, they basically tend to have shorter lifespans, mainly due to the fact that we had, of course, a lot of losses already during childhood in terms of childhood mortality, and as well due to infectious diseases states. So we are living longer because we have overcome these issues, and now we're facing other issues, because when we get older, we're also facing additional situations at this time. One of the most important one that receives a lot of attention are, of course, and that is very well known, non-communicable diseases. A large amount of people are actually passing away due to the consequences of the non-communicable diseases. As this is such an important public health issue, of course, this gets a lot of attention from health authorities such as the WHO. And of course, they're trying to identify what are the options to actually work on these things. Diet is still one of the main factors that actually influences, our quality of life and the extension of our life that we will have. And the WHO, they have set actually 9 voluntary non-communicable disease targets for 2025, and they include, for example, that they would like to see a 0 increase in obesity or in diabetes. They want to see a reduction in blood pressure, etc. So there are different targets that we can have. And I think the positive thing that we take out of this is actually that we are in a very prime position as an industry to help to improve the quality of life of our consumers. And as such, we give answers to this very fast changing environment. So answering external stakeholders by actually showing the progress that we make in terms of our health and wellness activities, and we will basically demonstrate this in the facts that come out of our measurement and report. We also have to acknowledge that consumers themselves are very much changing. You know extremely well that we have a much stronger empowerment due to the availability of information that is at a fingertip in terms of social media, etc. So consumers, they are changing in the sense that they have more empowerment. They're changing also in terms of how they want to like to see the industry. They would like to see high transparency from industry. They really going to evolve into choosing themselves actively brands and hence companies that really they can trust. And the trust is basically judged according to the values that these consumers would like to see in the products that we sell. So there is yet again a fantastic opportunity for us, because health, nutrition and also wellness is extremely important part of this equation for the consumer as well. Not to forget that we have, of course, alone already within the CGF and the value chain that we can look at, over 100 million people employed. This is a massive number of group where we can really start with. And finally, I think also we would like to use this opportunity, and that will bring me also to the reason why we changed this, that internally there are good reasons why we would like to move the needle in health and wellness. So Sharon, if you want to quickly move to the next slide, please. So why do we really measure? Because for us internally, I think it is an extremely useful tool to get the knowledge and understanding of what are we actually achieving. We can learn from what we do internally at the first thing, and we can also use learnings from other companies. So the information that we gather really helps us to get inspired and enhance our own company story first and foremost. And this you can of course use strongly, because now you understand where things are happening and also where you identify opportunities and push them internally. It gives you really the power to have an internal agenda that you can push forward. as mentioned before, we definitely also create value in terms of bringing forward powerful arguments to our external stakeholders, because as an industry we have 400 members in CGF. As said, we tackle already just with the value chain over 100 million employees. We can reach billions of people. This is massive. So hence, when we can show a very strong leadership in measuring our improvements, we also have extremely good opportunity to actually engage with external stakeholders and show what the important role is that industry can play, and that we want to claim a place at the table. Lastly, or not lastly, we also want to empower the CGF itself to share the progress, because this is the voicing organ that can help us to really span our message, and they can actually make this very much happen. We will see later on what the media coverage was, and I think this is extremely encouraging. So finally, also I think for us as a group, we definitely use the monitoring really also for the learning and understanding, okay, where are we strong? So we kind of leverage and tell the strong story, but also where are the things that we can improve, where are quick wins, where are opportunities, and where are threats as well that we need to be watching out for. So this needs to be in continuous efforts, and all of this, I think, we need to count on your continuous support for this reporting. So if we move to the next slide. In terms of participation, I would like to thank, on behalf of the whole working group, the companies that really went through the effort to report, which you can see is already an increasing number. We are at 78 companies that have been completing the report, so thank you very much for this. However, if we move to the next slide, we can see that, of course, 78 is already a very good number. However, we have to see it in the context of the overall potential that we have. As said, we are 400 member companies in 70 countries, and I think we basically all want to show these very positive achievements even at a larger scale, meaning having a higher number of companies that report back and that can additionally contribute to making a stronger argument of our achievements. So finally, I just want to end by saying for this section that we want to ensure that with this reporting we are really relevant for you individually, for CGF, for society at large, and for external stakeholders. And all of that is actually doable, that we are very much convinced of as the working group, including for small companies, for large companies, equally for retailers as for manufacturers, as well as for the food companies and the personal care companies. So really we want to make this unique opportunity work for everybody and work toward even a stronger proposition here. So with this I hand over to Harmjan for the findings.
Thank you, Petra, for the introduction and for the clear story you just told on why we do this and why this is important. And of course, if we have the summary now, or we have the summary of findings.
Harmjan, your volume, sorry Harmjan, your volume isn't great. Would you be able to speak a little bit louder? Thank you.
I will try. I'm close to the computer, but it should work. Is this better?
Yep.
Okay, good. So what we did is we looked at a survey, and we looked at a high-level summary of findings, and Blake will take you through the details more on the resolutions and on the commitments. But if you see, we have 78 companies responding now. Last year in 2014 we had 63 companies responding, which is an increase of 15. However, as Petra just mentioned, with 400 member companies, we still have a long way to go. And we are really trying hard to increase the number of participants in the survey. I think what we've done this year is the first year where we really precisely measure the implementation of our commitments. We have 2 of the commitments ending at the end of 2016. and to show to our stakeholders and to the people interested in the Goods Forum, I think it's incredibly important to increase the number of participants to show that we are really taking the health and wellness topic serious, and that we are really showing our stakeholders what we can do and what we will do in the future to improve the health and well-being of our customers and citizens. What we are trying to do to make your life easier as well is we made a huge effort to make the questionnaire more user-friendly. And I hope when filling the questionnaire you noticed that. I think we skipped some questions. We made it easier to go through the questionnaire, to answer the questions. We had a consolidated set of metrics. And what we saw in our findings when we were tracking the amount of time companies need to complete the questionnaire, we came to an average of 30 minutes, which is, I think, a reasonable amount of time to spend on this. And I'm aware that 30 minutes is just a system, and people need to collect data from people in the company, and you also do a lot of work outside the systems. But it really shows us that I think we succeeded in our approach to make it easy and to make the questionnaire more accessible, which is, at least for my personal view, a very good thing. But we don't stop there. Of course, we want to go further. So we are looking into some next steps. We are now questioning if we need to bring back some granularity to ensure we have a meaningful data for our 2016 commitments. What we see is we have a big increase in participation in Asia, which is interesting to see. However, it's also a little bit too early to really compare the different regions in the world where we are all operating, but we think this would give very good insights in where we stand and also how we can learn from each other. So that is something we would like to look into in a later stage in this year, or with a new survey as well. And we see that our resolutions continue to increase in implementation. However, the commitments are still a lot of work in progress for many of our members, and that is also an interesting finding. And we will see how we can improve those results as well in the coming year. I would like to leave it here for this slide, and I would like to give Blake the opportunity to take us a little bit more into details of the resolutions and the commitments and the findings we have, and then come back to you later with some other slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Armjan, and thank you everyone who's taken the time to join the webinar to learn a little bit more about the results from the 2015 Health and Wellness Survey. And a special thanks to anyone who is on the line who's participated either this year or in previous years. The information is extremely valuable, and we're excited that we're seeing increased participation over time, and we hope to drive further participation going forward. I've had the privilege over the past 3 years to support Sharon and her team on developing this survey and trying to understand how the CGF membership is implementing the resolutions. So I thought it might be useful just to take a moment to reflect on where we started and why we started this effort. Again, in 2011, the CGF board adopted 3 resolutions around health and wellness to provide access and availability of products, so to make sure that customers have or consumers have the products that they need to support a healthy diet and lifestyle, to provide the information necessary for consumers and shoppers to make informed choices, and finally to communicate and educate around diet and healthy lifestyles, so working with the entire health and wellness ecosystem to get the information out there that's going to allow societies to move towards a better place with respect to health and wellness. So with those resolutions in place in 2013, we developed a survey to try to understand where the membership was in implementing those resolutions, and we did that each of the first 2 years, and then in 2015 added some questions with respect to the commitments. Again, these were adopted in 2014, and they're a little bit more specific around actions that have and a timeline to try to complete those actions. And so you'll see when we go through the results that we've added an analysis of both the resolutions and the commitments. There's a little bit of difference between the two, but they're really in line in trying to understand how the membership has moved towards implementing what the board adopted in 2011. So first, with respect to the results from 2015, it's very encouraging. You can see that we're both high implementation rates and trending well over time. So again, just so you understand what we've measured here, in the survey we asked companies, have they set policies to implement the resolutions, and have they taken action against those policies, or have they got programs in place to try to activate against those resolutions? And the results you see here are for companies that have taken set policies and activated programs. And against one of the resolutions, the implementation rate is up to 95%. And you might think that that's likely, we know that health and wellness is a key priority for the membership, both across food and beverage manufacturers, personal care manufacturers, and retailers. And so perhaps it's not surprising that the implementation rate is high on one of the three resolutions. What we found most encouraging, I think, in the 2015 results was this trend that you're seeing in companies developing a more holistic approach to health and wellness. So not just focusing on, say, product reformulation, but adding along with product reformulation, making sure that the information is available for stakeholders and customers, shoppers, with respect to the health and wellness characteristics of their products. And then not stopping there, but adding, getting into that third pillar and partnering with members of the community, with schools, health and wellness professionals, to try to educate and communicate information about healthy diets and healthy lifestyles. And so this final bar graph where you see the increase in the percentage of companies that have gone from that are implementing all three resolutions, so have set policies and activated programs against all three resolutions, increased from 60 to 74%. I think that really reflects this next generation thinking that acting in this space needs to be a holistic approach that incorporates all three of the principles that have been captured in the resolutions. So we do want to congratulate the membership on the progress that's been made thus far, but also think about what we can do next and how to move things along, in particular with respect to the commitments that have established both for 2016 and 2018. So again, these commitments were rolled out in 2014. In this year's survey, in the 2015 survey, we added specific language that measured implementation against these commitments. And so we wanted to understand, are companies, have they already implemented the commitment? Do they plan to do so by the deadline? If they're not, if they've been unable to implement it or they haven't started, what are the barriers that they're seeing in getting moving in this in the directions toward meeting these commitments? And so you can see that there are some gaps to implementation with respect to have companies publicly communicated their nutrition and formulation policies at about 50%, but it's worth noting that within our responses, about another quarter said that they plan to implement the commitment within 2016. So three quarters are basically on track to meet that commitment. We need to move quickly for that last 25% to make sure they have the resources, understanding, knowledge in order to fulfill the commitment by the end of 2016. With the second, similar story with the second commitment around implementing employee health and wellness programs. Again, somewhere in the order of half the companies have completed that commitment already, and another quarter plan to do so within 2016. For the 2018 commitments, first around implementing product labeling. Again, that response was a little bit lower. Less than half of the companies had completed. The timeline's a little longer. And when you look at those companies that are currently expecting to implement the commitment by 2018, there's another third that expect to get there. And then finally, with respect to advertising to children, that has a similar trajectory as the first two, where half the companies feel they're already at a place where they've fulfilled the commitment, and another approximately quarter feel like they're on track to hit that commitment by 2018. And so, given the timeline on these commitments, we really want to support the membership in implementing them as soon as possible. And so there's a toolkit that's available at the Health and Wellness website that can help you to get started if you're struggling. And there's additional information either in the report or on the website that can help to move your program along and understand what the commitment means and how you can fulfill it. Because of course the goal is to reach 100% through the commitment period. So please reach out to me or anyone else on the call if you have any questions about what's necessary in order to fulfill the commitment or how you can get started in that process. Next slide, please. Move to the next slide. Thank you. And so, as I introduced at the beginning, the health and wellness measurement and reporting effort was really around understanding the implementation against the resolutions. Later, specifically, we're asking about implementation against the commitments. But a third pillar of what we're trying to understand through that survey is outcomes. And so we've worked over the past 3 years to try to identify those KPIs or those measurable outcomes that we can use as an organization to communicate progress. And so these have to be things that can be rolled up across the CGF membership. And here's what we've identified here are 5 KPIs that we feel it's appropriate to roll them up and to add together the actions across the spectrum of CGF membership. And it's really about how companies are reaching out, including their employees, their customers, their partners in the health and wellness ecosystem to try to move the needle within the communities that they operate. And so with respect to these KPIs, we asked companies, who are you partnering with in order to get information about your health and wellness activities out to your stakeholders? Are you partnering with schools, with larger communities, with government, with health and wellness professionals? And then who are you reaching through those efforts? So what you see here is some of the results. Almost 2 billion people reached through health and wellness efforts of the respondents to the CGF survey. So this is a quite large number, and it has increased significantly over time. I think it speaks to the potential impact that this group has in educating and helping larger society understand what role that they can play in improving health and wellness outcomes. The second is around reformulated products. So over 84,000 products have been either developed or reformulated in order to increase the health and wellness attributes of the product in the marketplace. Again, this is a significant increase over previous years. With respect to engagement with employees around health and wellness programs, we saw, I think Petra mentioned at the beginning that CGF membership represents almost 100 million employees, and from the respondents we found that 2.3 million had engaged in company health and wellness programs in 2015. So this is an area where that actually is an opportunity to expand the efforts and to make more of an impact within the borders of your company, because there's a significant opportunity there in terms of the numbers of employees that haven't yet been reached through these health and wellness programs. Additionally, the number of communities that have been partnered with on communication and education programs, 5,000, and the number of health and wellness professionals, doctors, nutritionists, that have been partnered with in order to communicate health and wellness information at 2.2 million, up again relative to the previous year. So a very positive story with respect to the KPIs. This is part of the survey that we look at each year, and so any feedback that you can provide us on what information you might be tracking with respect to health and wellness outcomes, and if we can incorporate that in the survey going forward, we will. Thank you, and I think we'll turn it back over to Arjan.
That's me for the next slide. Right. No problem, no problem. So Sharon, if we can move to the next slide, because I think all of these achievements that we have made are really not going unnoticed. I have to say also we should thank the Secretariat that did a fantastic job really to leverage our achievements and the report actually, and got fantastic media coverage, I think we have to say. If you can see here the numbers already, you know, this was distributed and announced in 115 countries in 12 languages. I think that is a great achievement. And it's unprecedented number of downloads, as you can see here, with 5,300. The numbers also of the online mentions were extremely well. So I think all of this shows that you know, what we have to say is something that is relevant and that also media really wants to talk about. So we are spot on. And I think it links back also to my very initial slide where I said that the external world is putting more focus on us. There are challenges and pressures, but actually we are answering to them in a positive way, because the recognition is extremely positive. Just also to say that in terms of the public commitment that we made on health and wellness, the media there covered really Reuters, Food Navigator, Supermarket News, and they really all reported on that, just to name a few. And what we have to also to recognize is that as they were so interested, they will be extremely hungry to see how we continue to improve. So we must continue our efforts. There's no way that we can say, you know, oh, let's lean back, that was a good achievement, no. We are actually on a journey that we have embarked in. It shows that we are on the right track, so we must continue. So I only encourage you all to keep the efforts and even increase the efforts to make sure that we have an even stronger message to share in the future. What I also would like to share is that our board CEOs, they have personally sent a letter and a copy of the report to Dr. Chan at the WHO. We haven't yet received her feedback, but I think also this is a very strong and important way of engaging with our extremely important stakeholders here. So with this also I would like to just have a quick message on what was actually that the media looked at. So if we move to the next slide, I think what is also again giving congratulations here to the team, it was extremely well prepared. So the headline that we proposed in our press release was actually the one that was taken up. So we put the consumer here in the center and the empowerment of the consumer. So, and in the context of lifestyle choices and that we actually have a positive impact, I think is an extremely strong message that we got across and that really had been picked up across. You can also see from the second bullet point that the healthier products on the rise was another extremely well-perceived message. So that is, of course, directly related to our efforts as industry to reformulate. I think that is one of the things that there is under the limelight, and that we need to continue our efforts in showing the world that we are making extremely hard efforts to improve our products year on year on year, and that these are all delivering into healthier choices for consumers by still delighting them. So overall, I think that is something which we can be proud of, and I think it really gives us a strong reassurance and a reward that what we have been doing will actually also be recognized externally. So I think this all shows us that, keep on going. So as you saw that here from these results, that product reformulation is one of the things in the limelight. Let us go back to the numbers that Blake showed, where we have currently 49% of companies that report that they are active in this field. It will go recognized. So please, within your company, use these arguments to really leverage and surface the efforts on reformulation that you put so that we can report on it. Because I am sure we're all doing it, and we just want to make sure that actually we can get this also measured, and when it is measured, we can use it as a strong fact to tell the story. So with this very positive recognition, I would hand over to Harmjan, who will share with us what the next steps going to look like.
Thank you, Petra. I hope my sound is better, because I heard the sound is not fully good, but I hope it's better now. So if you look at this slide, I think in Q1 what we've done is we've launched a report, and as Petra said, we had a major stakeholder outreach, and we had positive feedback, which is very good, and a lot of it gives a lot of energy as well to continue and to show that we are on the right track. What we need to do is to inspire and activate. I think that's really something that is key also to gain on this momentum and to get people involved and to get them along with us. And of course, the feedback sessions like this webinar is part of it as well, and the lessons learned. But looking at the future, what we will do in the second quarter, we will do a re-engineer exercise, as it stated here. We will look at the KPIs. We will see how we can look at the 2 commitments that are ending this year, and to see if we can get as many companies reporting on it to give a solid baseline of where we ended and a solid result on that. Also, as we discussed or as we told before, we try to include more personal care and hygiene input. This is an extremely important group as well in the health and wellness area, because of course it's not only about the food that you put in your body, but it's also about the things you put on your body, which can have an incredibly impact on your health, especially in the hygiene aspect. And then one of the other things which we will focus on this year is on a materiality matrix, which is a tool used by a lot of companies already, which is mapping the stakeholder interest and the interest of the Consumer Goods Forum itself, which is plotted in a matrix which nicely shows which topics are really important, which are really material for in this area and for this group to report on, to really have an impact. And of course there are many important topics, but we also know that we can't report and we can't measure them all. So we need to make choices, and we hope that this tool and this exercise will help us in making these choices as well towards the future. And we will work. We will have a working group meeting. If you see the logos on the slide, the representatives from these companies will meet. And if you have any input for the meeting, or if you want to share anything on the questionnaire or on other topics, please let us know. We're currently planning to meet in April, so before that, any input is welcome. Then we will also continue to show our progress on the events the CGF is organizing. We will talk to our steering committee in the health and wellness area to see how they look at this topic and what we can learn from them and how they want to steer this further. And then, of course, an important thing in autumn is the launch of the 2016 measurement. And there we will actively contact you and ask you to fill in the questionnaire as well. But also to try to give you as much as input you need to do this in a good way. And then we go in Q4 again, we analyze the data, we finalize the report, and we go into another cycle. If we can go to the next slide, please. Sharon, would you go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. What you see there, and it's a little bit repetition of what I said, but if you look at the top line where we have the stakeholder engagement, where we look at how to engage with our stakeholder, also how to go further beyond 2016, so towards 2017 and 2020, of which the materiality matrix will help us a lot to show where we need to put focus on. And we will put a lot of energy in that to make that really a strong tool to use and to see where we need to go. Then we are also looking at how we can support you. As mentioned before, but we have the toolkit. We will continue to work with the toolkit and to share best practices and to help you in completing and to sharing that. I have to read it from a paper. It's very small on the screen. What we will do as well is we showcase the examples we are doing on the events and on the global committees and on the global events we have to engage people as well. And last but not least, we will also continue to measure and report as I just explained. So we would encourage you to mark your calendar already for September 2016. We also encourage you to think already, it's early in the year, but think about stories and data and progress you already can collect and you already have. Because it's of course the data is important to do the report and to show where we are and that we're making progress. But together with the data we need nice stories and we need strong stories to tell that we are really moving the right way. And everybody likes the data and or everybody likes the stories and knows where we're going, and we need the data to support it. So it's a two-way street, I would say. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So I just want to reaction that you've heard from our working group leads and Blake. The way the CGF works, I mean, it doesn't work without the participation, engagement of our members. So what I would really ask you on the call, we have a great mixture of people, retailers, manufacturers, personal care, hygiene, food, beverage, who are listening to us today. We have 8 working groups under the health and wellness pillar. Measurement and reporting is one of them. If this is a passion, if you're interested to see how we can drive our KPIs, how we can show meaningful impact on the global health and wellness agenda, you're very welcome to join us. We will be open to welcoming new members. I think it's very, very important to continue to support this effort and to work alongside, as Petra mentioned, all of your industry peers, and as Harmjan called out, what better way to show what you're doing through case studies and stories and good practices that we're very happy to show and disseminate on either our digital toolkit, which is consumergoodsforbetterlives.com, either through the CGF blog or through member news that we send out regularly to the 400 member companies. So lots of ways to tell your story, and even if it seems like a small story, you know, what all of you are doing can have great impact and has the potential, when it's scaled up across the CGF network, to really help people and empower people towards healthier diets and lifestyles. So the implementation, we have the 2 commitments on employee health and wellness and nutrition and product formulation this year. There are working groups working behind the scenes, looking to develop resources to help all of our member companies with implementation. We really understand and know that our members are at very different scales in terms of innovation. Some companies are just getting started, they're just creating policies, others it's established as part of their company strategy. But as Petra mentioned, the environment is changing and health and wellness is really something that is gaining traction, and we want to make sure that we're ahead of the curve as an industry in what we're doing to help consumers and shoppers, and of course our own people. As Harmjan mentioned, we will continue to measure, and we have made the commitment, and our board of directors have made this commitment to be public and transparent about what we're doing. So when we get together as a working group, in the next couple of months. We're really going to put our heads together to see how we can go even into more granularity on the data on employee health and wellness and nutrition and product formulation, how we can ensure that we've got a meaningful report to produce at the end of this year, and that people, the external world, but also our internal stakeholders in the CGF network will understand the steps that all of you are taking to help consumers and shoppers in their lifestyle choices. So I would now like to open it up to Q&A. If you have anything that you would like to ask Harmjan, Petra, Blake, or myself, you have, of course, the options to send us something in the chat box, to send me, if you haven't already done so, a question by email, or if you would like to ask your question directly to the speakers, just let me know. So what I'll do firstly is I'll just look through the questions that we've come in that have come in through email. So firstly, very simple question: will the presentation be shared afterwards? Yes, absolutely. So the presentation and the recording will be shared afterwards. So if you have colleagues who want to listen in and hear more about why you know, as CGF we're measuring and reporting and why it's important, please feel free to share this with you. And what I'd also ask you, what's really helpful for us, you will receive a quick question to see how useful this webinar was for you, and any, you know, if there's one thing that you think we could do to improve, whether it's the webinar or whether it's the way we're measuring and reporting, whether you are a company and you're feeling that our questions or our KPIs aren't relevant for you. We're really at the moment building the new questionnaire, so we're open to all of your feedback and your impressions about what works and what doesn't work. So I'll just take the first question, and I'll give this one to you, Petra, if you don't mind. So the question is, what would you see, or what does success look like for you in 2016? What would you see as success for 2016?
That's I think is a very interesting question, and I think what for me definitely is one of the biggest successes would be that we can expand the number of companies, I would say. And I think while we don't want to set a fixed number in terms of, okay, that's a target for what we want to achieve, I think if we can at least have a total of 100 companies that have completed the report, that would be a fantastic achievement. And if we have even a higher number, that would be, of course, even more welcome. Thinking about this also, I believe, in terms of what has been presented before and giving the urgency, the two commitments that are due in 2016, I believe this is extremely important, that companies, they focus and really make an effort to deliver on those. And I think it's probably not delivering and doing action, but rather letting us know what they are doing. Pardon, excuse me. So this would be something, I think these 2 points, they would be for me already making a huge success. Increasing the number of companies that report, and secondly, having a close to 100% achievement of the two commitments by the end of 2016. Harmjan, you want to add something from your side?
No, I fully agree with you, but also, and this is discussed before, I think what I would like to see as well, and what I think which makes this report more lively is also the success stories we can share, and perhaps even, and I know this is extremely difficult, but we are talking about what does success look like. I would really like to see the impact we are having. And of course that's difficult to measure, but perhaps there are some examples, and some companies already know how to do this, that we can really show the impact, because these are the numbers on paper. But ideally we also show what changes in our societies and what changes for our customers. So if there are some first impressions on that, I would love to see them as well.
Thank you. The next question I've received is, how can I join your working group? Which is a great question. Petra or Harmjan?
Well, please give your name and access details to Sharon, and I think she will send an invite to you to join us for our next call, and she will probably give you a briefing before that, so to make sure that you clearly see that. So that is fantastic news. We welcome very much new members.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Great, and a special, absolutely, I'll get in contact after the webinar, and if there are personal care and hygiene companies on today's webinar, a special call out as well. We really want to make sure that we're bringing what's important to you and what's relevant to you to the forefront of our agenda, and making sure we have a holistic approach. So if you have suggestions and feedback and learnings for us, we'd be very open to hearing them. So what I'll just, I don't think I have any questions on the phone lines. I'll just unmute everyone for 30 seconds to see if we do, and please let us know your name and where you're calling from, and we'll try and answer your question. Great. Thank you very, very much, everyone, for your time today. We really appreciate your participation, and please do not hesitate in giving us feedback or joining us if you want to give us your learnings and your insights on how we can continue to improve. So thank you very, very much. If you have questions afterwards by email, don't hesitate to share them. We really appreciate your insights. Thank you very much.